Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the UFOcast as Captain Scarlet. This time we're talking about Special Assignment. So this completes the 4 episodes that I had on VHS tape number 5 when I was a kid. So it's one of the episodes that I am most familiar with and have a certain fondness for, and therefore I'm potentially liable to forgive the issues that there are with the episode, because I feel that had this not been one of those ones that I watched over and over again as a child, that I would be more ready to poke holes in the plot. It doesn't feel like it quite hangs together. I suppose the issue is that it sort of relies on characters not knowing stuff that should be kind of obvious. Watching it again now, it feels like it relies on a series of coincidences. the Mysterons take over these 2 guys before Captain Scarlet gets suspended for gambling. And so you're like, well, what was the Mysteron plan before Captain Scarlet got suspended for gambling? Like, how did they know that there was going to be a Spectrum agent available to blackmail? Equally, like, the bit of the episode we don't see is Spectrum Intelligence finding out. Presumably that's the piece of information that Spectrum Intelligence find out, is that they discover that there's these 2 Mysteron agents. And then Colonel White's like, right, we're going to send you on this mission. Sort of like, well, we're going to send Captain Scarlet as bait because they will use him to get what they want. And then there's the whole red herring of, like, the money. It's like, well, we're going to give you money, but we're going on a suicide mission. And then the whole kind of like, oh, if you haven't already gathered, we're Mysteron agents. I've gone in with the picky, basically because like everything else about the episode kind of works. The opening is quite fun. Don't be a garage attendant in the Captain Scarlet universe, is all I can say, because you'll get taken over. And I suppose that bit is entirely superfluous to requirements as well. Like, why does Captain Black not just Mysteronize the 2 guys? But that's fine. It's a nice start to the episode. We get some nice jaunty Barry Gray music. We get Shane Rimmer making a brief cameo in that role. And I suppose this episode potentially gave me a paranoia about brake fluid for a while. It's the idea that like somebody could drain the brake fluid out of your car and then you would die because you crash is quite horrible, really. So that whole opening is quite effective, and then yeah, just the whole idea of like, well, the Mysterons are planning to destroy North America, is one of their biggest targets. I suppose we have the reflective nature of this being a 1960s show is that there's all this atomic stuff going on in the 2060s, a big nuclear power plant in Nevada that, well, I don't know, does it power the whole of America? I don't know. The implication is that they blow it up and it will blow up the whole of the states through some kind of chain reaction. Though, is the implication that that's a chain reaction of like from there to like other power plants, or like a nuclear chain reaction? Not entirely clear. The idea that like Captain Blue and Captain Scarlet hang out with each other when they're not on duty is quite funny as well. I suppose this is the second time we've seen Spectrum personnel on leave after Seek and Destroy, I guess. Whereas Destiny was like, right, well, I'm going off to Paris on my own. Whereas Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue are like, well, we're going to go hang out, and Captain Scarlet's going to take up gambling. It's quite funny, really. Overall, it's quite an enjoyable episode. But yeah, it's one of those ones where you need to not think about the plot too closely, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. But I think, unlike other episodes that I've been hard on, I'm going to forgive it a lot of its faults because it was one of those ones that I was very familiar with as a kid, and there's a certain element of nostalgia which glosses over any flaws that there might be in the episode. I don't know anything about military regulations. Listeners, write in if you're more familiar, but is gambling a sackable offence in the military? Because it seems like one of those things that like should be part of your private life. But then I suppose I guess the fact that as a military person you'd be open to blackmail, I can see the logic behind saying you can't be in debt if you're in the military, or as far as Spectrum goes, a police organisation that, as we know, has access to kind of crazy hardware that you could be blackmailed into giving over. So I guess I can see the logic behind saying that somebody should be fired for gambling. Whereas in a lot of jobs, what you do in your spare time is your lookout. Though I suppose if you were getting massively into debt through gambling, your HR department might want might want to know about that. Please write in if you know about gambling regulations and the police and the military. Yes, I guess the more I think about it, the more that makes sense. That would be a sackable offence. So overall, it's an episode that I enjoy, but I don't think you should think too hard about the logic of the series of events and how it plays out, and just go with the sort of the atmosphere of the episode. As far as the episode order goes, the Blu-ray has it the latest in the sequence. DVD has it at number 10, so much earlier on, and the VHS at number 18, along with those other three that I've talked about before: Avalanche, Heart of New York, and The Trap, which all get very spread out with the Blu-ray order that we've done, and I've now covered all of them. So those are the episodes from my particularly from my childhood that I watched over and over again. We have another Mr. On still at large, Mason, the garage. Well, assuming that the garage attendant is the guy whose name is over the top of the shop. Mason, the garage attendant, Mr. On, is still at large. I feel that there should be an episode that kind of follows up on all these people, because increasingly we have more Mr. Ons who aren't dealt with by the end of an episode. And it's a win for Spectrum, obviously, that North America is not blown up. Head over to ufocast.co.uk for this week's Mr. On puppet additions to the gallery. Next week we are talking about Traitor, the one with the Spectrum hovercraft, which I don't remember much about, apart from what the resolution is. So we'll see if I enjoy that this time round.